pastimes, the characteristics, and the vision of Srila Prabhupada. No better, no more interesting subject than that, and no more edifying subject than that, as it brings us closer and closer to Krishna. Simply by understanding more about Srila Prabhupada and learning about what he taught us in terms of the execution of devotional service, and many other things, just in how to live life as a devotee in this very difficult time, which is the effects of this age is so bad. Srila Prabhupada cut through that with his sharp intelligence and was able to help us understand how to get beyond all of that, at the same time worship Krishna with what we say, determination. So we're really, really blessed to have your association. Thank you very much. Especially I feel very happy. Of course, I'll ask you, would you like to speak first?
Being observant. But whatever you like, whatever you would like.
I think if you speak first,
Speak a little few minutes first.
You can speak. We have an hour and a half, so
Okay.
you can take at least an hour. Of course, whatever you feel inspired.
Okay.
Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pujani Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paskajade Sutani Panchakopa Tirupashtari Pasanduga Evacha Patitanam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnavi Bhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna. So it's been just almost a year, I guess. Was it last year? Was December time? December time. And I was eager to come back because it wasn't so much the programs, it was taking prasadam with Maharaj every afternoon and evening. It was the high point of my stay here in the Govardhan Eco Village last year. Today I was of course counting on Maharaj to start so I could think of what to say while he was talking and work off of him. But he's turning it around on me. At lunchtime today I talked with a few of the devotees here. And it's always a question, of course it comes up very naturally, to be with Srila Prabhupada, what it was like. And more and more as time goes by, I realized you can only do it because of his mercy. I met in Boston, another one of the devotees I met was Bali Murdan, after not seeing him for almost 50 years, Bali Murdan, and he was, of course, he was at GBC back in the day. He was manager of temple in New York City. He was one of the first devotees to go the Pacific Rim, they call it the Pacific Rim, which was part of Asia there and down into Australia, so along with Upendra. I think he was one of the original devotees that opened up that place. But of course, as time goes by, so many things happen. But we had a nice talk while we were there in Boston. On the ship, we were on some Boston Queen or something like a big ship they had taken for the day, kind of to be there in Boston Harbor. Srila Prabhupada came 60 years ago. 60 years ago. I missed the festival in Ujjain this year for the first time in 5 or 6 years. Because I told them, and they held me to it, they said you have to come back next year. I said, I'll come back every year. So this year I didn't get to go back because I was invited to go to Boston to be part of the festival there, which I've always wanted to do. And like I say, in talking with Bali, he told me some funny stories. When it was in '73 when Prabhupada made that very unique trip to San Moritz, and to Zurich, and then San Moritz in Switzerland. And it was April. So of course April already, it's, 110 degrees, 40, 45 degrees in India, but not in Switzerland. That wasn't the temperature. Anyway, Prabhupada wound up there for a few days. And when he was there, Prabhupada asked Bali to make kachoris. And he said, I'll show you how to make kachoris. So Prabhupada showed him how to make kachoris that day. And Bali was saying, every time Prabhupada would see me, he'd say, make me kachoris. He said, I didn't know how to make kachoris. But Prabhupada had taught him, and he would do that. He would show one devotee, one preparation. Harikesha, it was shukta. So he said, Harikesh made first class shukta. With me, there was a few things. He said, my sandesh was first class. And he said, my upma was first class. So Prabhupada gave different people these different recipes. You know, he showed me how to make parathas. I was telling that story in Boston. And it was in New York, Los Angeles, and I just had a small room. It was, Prabhupada's had an apartment, a flat. So basically you would call it like a 3-bedroom flat. And I was in the smallest one. So it was a tiny room. And that was the servants' quarters. It was also my kitchen. Prabhupada had experience with his servants in temple kitchens. It wasn't a good experience. He would lose his servants in the temple kitchen. So he decided he'd make the kitchen in my room. So I didn't have to go into the temple kitchen. And it was literally just 2 burners on the floor. There was a gas line for a heater, but we put a little 2-burner stove on the floor. And then I had 2 cinder blocks and a piece of wood, call it like a 1x10 piece of wood went across. That was my kitchen counter. And I had a bucket of water. This is how I cooked for Prabhupada, traveling around the world. Bhaktivedanta Manor. Who's from Bhaktivedanta Manor here? Yes. Prabhupada's quarters. If you walk out his door, you make a right, and you make the first right, there's a little closet door there. That was my kitchen. It was this dark room that was like 1 meter by 2 meters. That was my kitchen. Same thing, just a little burner on the floor and a bucket of water. And you're cooking for Srila Prabhupada, so that's what I had to do. But anyway, in Los Angeles, he came by one evening. As he would do, he would walk through his quarters and chant japa. So he was walking by, and my door, servant, your door is always open. You have no privacy. People say, what was it like to be with Prabhupada? That's what it was like. Every moment you were in your room. You couldn't go anywhere. 24 hours a day. You had to be there. And it was in that place, Los Angeles, New York, Prabhupada sometimes stayed there for 2 months, which was a long time. Every day he's going somewhere. If you look at his schedule, went from Mumbai, stayed in Hong Kong overnight, then he stayed in Japan overnight, then he went to Hawaii for 2 days. So this was how he traveled. But Los Angeles, 72, 73 was the world headquarters. There was nothing in India. That was the world headquarters. So he stayed there for some time, and I got to meet some friends. I'm from Philadelphia, East Coast there. And these people, they were from Brooklyn, New York, which is just an hour or 2 away, and the same kind of mentality. So we became friendly. These couple of guys, they were grahastas, young, we were all just 21, 22 years old. And somehow or other, we became friendly. And they said to me, why don't you come to Mangalarti? Because no one ever told me when I became Prabhupada's servant, you do like this, you do like this. Because all you knew was, Shangasundar said to me, when Prabhupada rings the bell, you go in the room. That was it. He said, when Prabhupada's in the car, you sit next to him. So when Prabhupada's on the plane, you sit next to him. So these were the 3 instructions I got when I became his servant. Otherwise, I say now we have classes for everything. You have classes to become GBC, you have classes to become a disciple, classes to become an initiating guru, right? You have classes to learn how to chant japa retreats, part 1, part 2, part 3, classes for everything. We had Bhagavatam class and Bhagavad Gita class, that was our classes. Otherwise, work. So anyway, they said, why don't you come to Mongol Artik? I said, well, I have to be in my room. Prabhupada rings the bell. I said, does he ever ring the bell 4 o'clock in the morning? I said, no, not usually. Well, come to Mongol Artik, Rukmini Dwarkadish is there. And at that time, our big Kirtaniyas, they didn't travel around the world. Wherever they lived, they would be, Parikshit was Ardaraj, lead Kirtan, Parikshit would lead Kirtan, Vyasaki. So they were big devotees even then. Anyway, they convinced me to go to Mongol Artik. So that was the next morning. Now I've been with Prabhupada already for 6 months. Every day, just sitting in my room, waiting for the bell to ring, preparing his lunch, giving him massage. But I went to Mongol Artik. So of course I was only there for 10 minutes. And got a tap on the shoulder from Prajumna, Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor. He says, Panditji, Prabhupada wants to see you now. So I offered obeisances, ran upstairs. I already knew I was in trouble. Prabhupada wants to see you means you're in trouble. That's the code word. It means you're in trouble. Prabhupada wants to see you. Otherwise, why does he want to see me? So I ran in, I know I was in trouble, going to Prabhupada. He's behind his desk, I offer obeisances. He doesn't wait for you to look at him. He's already chastising you while you're down on the ground. Where have you been? I've been ringing this bell for hours, he said. His time frame was different. I said it was more like Lord Brahma's time frame. A moment. If he had to wait 5 seconds, it was hours. I said, where were you? I said, oh, Prabhupada, I went to Mongol Artik. You have no business going to Mongol Artik. He said, what if I need something? What am I supposed to do? He said, your business is to be in your room 24 hours a day. You want to know what it was like to be Prabhupada's servant? That's what it was like. You had zero independence. All of us, that's our program. Completely dependent on Guru and Krishna. We have no independence. But we think we do until gradually you understand what it means to be Krishna conscious. That's what you learn from Prabhupada, what it meant. Every moment. He said, you be in your room. If I need something, you have to be there. He said, I was the only devotee. I was in Maya because I went to Mongol Artik. Everyone else, you're in Maya because you don't go to Mongol Artik. You're all in Maya. You don't go to Mongol Artik. I was in Maya for going. So sometimes I still follow that instruction. I don't go to Mongol Artik. But in Vrindavan, for now the last almost 6 years, been living in Vrindavan. The temple president there, he's a madman for the morning program. He never misses Mongol. We have 2 Mongol Artiks. 4:10 in the Samadhi, and then after that 15 minutes, then you run to the temple room for your next Mongol Artik. So that's our program in Vrindavan. And now, of course, I'm on the executive committee. So now when you're one of them, you're an HOD, head of department, you've got to show yourself in the mornings, a Mongol Artik class, Guru Puja. It's all very wonderful. And it's what Prabhupada wanted. So anyway, that was my lesson. And I knew I shouldn't be there. I already knew it. I instinctively knew I had certain parameters as a servant that I was expected to do. And I was content doing that for the most part. Anyway, one evening, as he would walk through his rooms and he would chant. He had one sitting room, another sitting room. Then he'd go through the hallway, and that's servants' quarters were there. And again, if you're just sitting there because you're waiting for him to call you. And he come look by, see what you're doing. And you're just sitting there. I wasn't a pundit. My head wasn't in the books all the time. But one time he was walking around there, walking. Chanting one is you could hear him. And generally you didn't hear Prabhupada chant japa. It was quiet. He could be chanting on the airplane the whole time, but you didn't hear him say anything. But here I could hear his beads even, him clicking on his beads as he was going through. And he stopped right in front of my room and he looked at me. He said, when you're in anxiety, you chant very loudly on your beads. What was his anxiety? You had no idea. The Juhu property, which was constantly under threat of being taken away. After Radharasa Bahari were there, so it couldn't happen. Anyway, it was always under threat, they were going to lose it. And Prabhupada always had to deal with it. That temple, Prabhupada fought harder for that temple than any other temple in ISKCON. More than anything, what he had to do to secure that property over the course of years. So then he said that, and he's looking at me. He gave me different instructions about japa. He's looking at me, he said, even as a grahasta, he said, very easy to get your 16 rounds done. He said, you chant 4 rounds early in the morning. He said, and 4 rounds before every meal. I mean, 3 meals a day. He said, and if you don't chant those 4 rounds, you can't eat that meal. That way you'll get your rounds done, he said, because of course everyone wants to prashad. So he was telling me how to chant. Another time he knew me very, very well. Another day, it was an afternoon and he rang the bell. I went in and he was sitting behind his desk. And his desk was the same everywhere, just like Vrindavan. It was just a cushion on the floor with a table like this in front of it, with a lamp on. Everywhere you went, it was the same. He literally brought Vrindavan all around the world. But I went in and I offered obeisances and his feet were out under the desk. So when I was down, I could see his lotus feet. And I sat up and he looked at me. He had his bead bag. Went like this. Now I have finished my 16 rounds, he said. I can do any damn thing I want. He didn't say that on the Vyasa-san, he said that to me. He knew me very well. So he said, this is our business. You chant your rounds, and I heard him say that a few times to different people. He said, chant your 16 rounds, follow the principles, and do any damn thing you want. That was when people weren't prepared to do what he wanted. Or he would say, finally, because everything we do is voluntary. At least at that time it was. There was no money. There was no money involved at all. You did your service and Krishna took care of you. That was it. So this one evening, and he did that a few times. When I was with him, he ate in the evening, 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night. He would ask for something. And I talked to other servants. It didn't happen so much. Govinda Dasi's hot milk. Nanda Kumar, hot milk. Me, hot milk, and he came to my room, he said, do you know how to make parathas? I said, no, Prabhupada. He said, well, all right, I'll teach you. He said, you make the chapati dough and call me when it's ready. And then he left. So I made a chapati dough. And then I went and called him. He came to the room. He said, okay. And he just directing. And he was happy that if he could just tell you and you did it, that was good. If he had to show you, then not so good. And that's not as good as way. If he can just tell you, that's very nice. He said, okay. He said, now, roll out like a chapati. He said, but use ghee instead of flour. He said, put some ghee down on it. Then put the ball, put a little ghee on the top and roll it out. He said, then put ghee and you fold it in half and roll it out. So I'm just doing, he's telling them, so I fold it in half, roll it out. He said, now put ghee on the top, fold it into quarters, and you roll it out again. So I do that. Of course, now you have a nice little like that. And then what does he say? Ghee, and you roll it out until you have a nice paratha-shaped triangle. Then you have your tava, right, cast iron skillet. He said, so medium heat. And what do? Ghee. So then you put your paratha on there, on a little heat, and on the top, ghee. Then after 30 seconds, you turn it over, ghee. So this was a paratha. It was wonderful. It turned out very nice and flaky, but it was just that with ghee. So then he would have that with a sabji, potato, eggplant, something like that. 9 o'clock at night. And that's what you were waiting for. You're sitting in your room, just fulfilling all his desires, whatever he wanted. And always hot milk. Always, every day. 9 o'clock at night, hot, boiling hot milk with a little sugar, or a little honey. He didn't specify. I was telling him at the table, I was with him 2.5 years. One of the most amazing things, I cook for him every day. He never once criticized my cooking. Not once. And I wasn't Jamuna. I mean, once Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he liked my cooking used a cooker. Prabhupada trained me in the cooker. First 3 days of my service, he showed me, explained to me, at the same time giving him massage and watching his cooker on the stove. That's what I did for 3 days. And then at the end of massage, and you take all the vegetables out, put the lid down and made a chaunce. The chaunce was 3 days in a row, he showed me basically the same chaunce. And this is 1972 in Texas, Dallas, Texas. So it's not like there was big variety of spices back then. But we had cumin, coriander, and hing, and turmeric. So we would just make a chaunce like that. In the first one, Prabhu was very economical, very thrifty in time, the way he used time. So you made a big chaunce in ghee, and you poured half of it into the dal. So now you have the rest of the chaunce. Now you throw some vegetables that have been steaming in the cooker for an hour and a half. That was the trick. Using the cooker. Not everybody could do it. After me, no one used the cooker. None of his servants. Ladies used the cooker. Sri Rupa was good at it. Malati, Palika. So then, anyway, Tamal liked the prasadam from the cooker. And one day after lunch, we're in the room and Tamal said, Prabhupada, Sruta Kirti, he's expert cook. And Prabhupada smiled, he said, yes. He said, he makes very nice American prasadam.
Can you read between the lines?
Yes, it was very simple. But it's what he showed me. And that's what he ate every day. When I was with him in Calcutta, that was after 6 months. This was 73, so now I've been with him for 6 months. In India, I didn't have to cook his lunch, because there were always senior ladies there to cook, like Malati and Palika and others. They all knew how to cook properly. It didn't filter down very well into the temples in America over time, the way Prabhupada prepared things. Samosa, you can never see a proper samosa anymore. Our samosas were, 2 things were in it, who knows? What vegetables are in a samosa?
Potato.
Sweet potato, everybody says potato. No, cauliflower and peas. That was a samosa, cauliflower. That's the way Prabhupada showed samosas, cauliflower and peas. And what do? You make your regular puri dough, and then you make a chance, and you put in the cauliflower, you put in the peas, and you cook it and cook it and cook it, till all you see is a dark green mass when you're done. You don't see peas, you don't see cauliflower, you see this dark green thing in there. And it has some sweet spices, or a little cinnamon, little clove like that, along with the chance. It was very good. Prabhupada showed Kaladri how to make samosas. And every time he saw Kaladri, he would have him make samosas for him. He liked the samosas. And of course, they were fried in ghee, not oil. Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna, same thing. Prabhupada in Calcutta, they used, of course, mustard oil. I was the only devotee in ISKCON that had mustard oil for massage. Prabhupada said, oil for the outside, ghee for the inside. So once Tamal Krishna was in Calcutta, goes into Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada, he said, don't you say ghee is for the inside of the body and oil is for the outside? Prabhupada said, yes. He said, well, here, he said, they cook everything in mustard oil. Prabhupada said, oh, he said, it's very tasty. But then, while he was there, this was April '73. So when he came to Calcutta, his sister would come and see him most every day. And when you first saw Prabhupada's sister, of course, you did a double take because it looked like a female version of Prabhupada. Face, everything was the same. She was shorter and heavier.
He said she's fat.
And she would cook for Prabhupada. And we would cook for Prabhupada lunch. So there were two lunches going on in the kitchen, what she cooked and what we cooked. And we cooked rice, chapatis, dal, and sabjis as Prabhupada showed us. And of course she cooked she grew up, learned from her mother how to cook. So anyway, first day, I would go and I bring in the one plate, and I bring in the next plate from Pishima. So that went on the first day at lunch, and then the second day at lunch. So the third day I bring in the ISKCON prasadam. Then I go back and I get the plate from Pishima, and I'm walking in, and I get right to the door, Prabhupada's room in Calcutta. And he said, don't bring that in here. He said, you eat it. He said, she's trying to kill me. That was one instruction I said, Prabhupada, I said, I can't eat it. Already back then I couldn't eat it. I said, I can't eat it, Prabhupada. He said, well, distribute it to devotees. He said, she's trying to poison me. He liked it, but he couldn't eat it. Mustard oil, very, very heavy. There's a Back to Godhead, 1955. If you can find it on database, Back to Godhead magazine. Prabhupada talks about fire yajnas and offering ghee to Lord Vishnu, and he talks about oil, and he says it's cancerous. Back then, Prabhupada said refined oil was cancerous. 1955, he said this. When I first moved into a temple, Prabhu said, when did you move? In 1971. We had no money in temples. We were selling Back to Godhead magazine for 25 cents. But we had ghee. Now we have lots of money in the temples, but no ghee. No one can have ghee or oil. So that was Pishima. But she was very, very sweet, Pishima. Of course, she was devotee, initiated devotee. And she would bring sweets from Kesi Das. I was mentioning to Prabhuji about Kesi Das. they were the best milk sweets, but like Bengali milk sweets, sandesh, rasgulla, rasmalai, like that. So she would bring them in, and that was my first real taste of proper Bengali sweets. Rasgullas that squeaked when you bit into them. And when she would bring them, of course, we would get them, and by Prabhupada's desk in Calcutta, there would always be a little plate with the sweets on it. Because anyone comes into his room, you don't leave before you get a sweet. You gotta get prasadam. You went to see Prabhupada, you always left with some prasadam, generally a sweet. So there are all these nice sweets there. So the one day I'm in there one morning, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and the ants found the sweets. So they're covered in ants. So I thought, oh, this isn't good. But I'm thinking this is good. So I couldn't wait. Prabhupada sitting behind his desk. I went in and I said, Prabhupada, there's sweets or ants all over the sweets. So I'm thinking he'd tell me to remove them, and then of course I could have them. But he looked at me, he said, they don't eat very much. Then he told me how to make a moat, using a katuri and tali. Put a tali down, fill it with water, then you just put a katuri upside down, and you put the plate on that. He said, no more ants. But he didn't let me take that box of sweets. He knew better. So that was being with him. But business was, I never went anywhere outside of, I always had to be within earshot of him ringing a bell. Which if I'm ringing a bell here and you're outside over there, you're not even going to hear it. So you literally had to be within like 10 meters of wherever he was. It might be a room, might be a hallway, might be outside on a veranda, but you had to be there to listen for a bell to ring. So that was your life as servant of Prabhupada, was just sitting there. And if you weren't there, sometimes like even in Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram Mandir, he rang the bell, I went in, he said, call, he asked for his secretary. Secretary wasn't there. See, I didn't have that option. You had to be there. Secretary could go places, Sanskrit editor could go places, not the servant. You were stationed there 24 hours a day. So he said, well, where is he? I said, well, I don't know, Prabhupada. Anyway, the afternoon came. He had gone in Vrindavan. He just went in Vrindavan and he was taking darshan of some of the deities, the temples in Vrindavan. So finally he came back in the afternoon. Prabhupada said, call him. So I went and got him.
Who was it?
That was Tamal Krishna. So I went and got him. Okay. And I would always go back into the room with whoever Prabhupada wanted to see, somehow or other. And Prabhupada never said, no, you stay out, private. There was no private. Prabhupada said, we have no secrets. He literally said that one time. Somebody asked people to leave. Prabhupada said, we have no secrets. Imagine what it means to be a devotee. You have no secrets. We all have secrets. Prabhupada, no secrets, he said. So then he said, where were you? He said, oh, Prabhupada, I went to darshan, the deity. Prabhupada said, I put all of the tirthas here in the courtyard of Krishna Balaram Mandir. He said, your business is to be here. People sometimes say, Sruta, you're a fanatic. I say, well, so is Prabhupada. He trained me as a fanatic. Don't go anywhere other than his lotus feet. It was the first thing I learned. Before I was a servant, I became a servant Janmashtami 1972. That was August. So this was May 1972, and this story will connect eventually. And we rode across country from New Vrindavan to Los Angeles to to get Brahmin initiation. Kirtanananda took myself and Kaladri and one other devotee. And it was the first time I got to see Prabhupada, other than getting first initiation, which was very quick, just at his Vyasa-sam. But now I'm in his room in Los Angeles. Beautiful room it was, white tile floor, and the typical blue walls and orange saffronish curtains. They heard Prabhupada said he liked it. As soon as Prabhupada liked something, it was duplicated everywhere. So every room he had anywhere in the world had blue walls and orange curtains because Prabhupada said he liked it. So that became, whatever he said, we were fanatical. He was in Hawaii. I wasn't cooking for him at that time. There was one Mataji cooking for him, and she always put too much salt. She would salt things, always too much salt. So one day, another day. So the third day, everything's in threes. The third day, that's it. No more. So she brought it. And salty. Prabhupada said, don't use any salt. So they heard that all around the world. They stopped using salt. Because Prabhupada said, no salt. So this is how we misunderstand instructions given to a person. Imagine no salt in anything. Me, he never said anything. Too much salt, not enough salt. His milk, he never said too much sugar, not enough sugar. Other people I heard, Nanda Kumar said, probably too much sugar, don't use so much sugar. But he never said these things. I don't know whether he gave up without trying or I was doing it okay all the time. In Calcutta, who's been to that temple in Calcutta? Who knows that place? Okay. So you know, you have the temple room, same place, right? What's it called? Albert Road. Same temples, still there. They finally own the temple. And in front of the temple room was a nice veranda open to outside, and next to it was Prabhupada's quarters. Just a small room and a bathroom that was used when he was there. Outside of that, there was only one other bathroom. That's a whole other story. But Prabhupada sometimes would come out of his room during Mangal Arti, and he would just walk across the veranda, go and stand in the back of the temple room and attend Mangal Arti, and he would just see the devotees. So the one day he's there, Mangal Arti time, and the next day he goes, and he taps one brahmachari. He said, where were you yesterday? Prabhupada always saw everything going. He knew all of us. He knew everything you're doing, what you're not doing. He said, where were you yesterday? Mangal Arti. Oh, and the devotee was very happy. So Prabhupada, he said, I went to where you were born, to your home. I went to Arti there, to the deities there that you would worship. Prabhupada looked, he said, this is your home. Prabhupada's home, his ISKCON society, not my home. He said, this is your home. He said, you go to the temple here. So this is how I was trained by Prabhupada. My wife and I, we've been in Vrindavan now for 5 years. We've been to one temple in 5 years. We don't go anywhere except Krishna Balaram Mandir. That's it. Because everything is right there. Prabhupada's given us everything. You know, I see myself to try to understand what Prabhupada has done. Going to Boston, seeing Boston Harbor. You should see that harbor now, how opulent it is. Everywhere Prabhupada went, it's like it became opulent in so many ways. And Mr. Pandya, Captain Pandya, took him on a walk. So that, of course, it's like the nicest street in all of Boston. All these high-class branded stores are there, everything, jewelry stores and this and that. Wherever Prabhupada put his lotus feet, it's just developed. a whole harbor. And that's the first place, Tirtha. So many tirthas Prabhupada has given us. We've heard the stories, how he got Juhu when he went to Sumati Morarji to ask for the passage to America. And then he saw that plot of land there. And eventually he bought that plot of land that he wanted there. We know the Chaupati temple, same thing. He saw that area, he liked that place. Just his desires have done so much. I think the more time goes by, Prabhupada will be understood more and more that how he changed the entire world. But aside from that, he was a person. Prabhupada was a transcendental person. So there in Dwarka, Kirtananda brought myself and Kaladri upstairs and introduced us to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was sitting behind his desk. It's like right after class, 9 o'clock in the morning. Prabhupada was sitting behind his desk and he looked at Kaladri and said, "What's your name?" Kaladri told him. Very good. And then he looked at me, he said the same thing. He said, "What is your name?" And nothing came out of my mouth. It was my first time and my hands are like glued to the floor. I'm sweating. And then I heard Kirtananda say, "Sruta Kirti." His name's Sruta Kirti, Prabhupada. He said, "Very nice." And then his servant walked in and he had his Prabhupada's breakfast plate. And he looked at him. Prabhupada looked, he said, "Why weren't you a class?" That was the very first thing I learned from Prabhupada. He said, "Why weren't you a class?" And his servant, and this was the next lesson I learned, the servant said, "I was preparing your breakfast." You never give an excuse. I mean, unless you're like dying going to the hospital, you have no excuse. He said, "I was preparing your breakfast." Prabhupada said, "Cutting fruit? Anyone can do that. Your business is to be a class every day." So that was us. If we were with Prabhupada, he expected you to take his association as much as possible. 2.5 years, I never missed one class, 2.5 years. Maybe I didn't hear anything, but I was always sitting right there every day at class. I sat there with jaundice, I sat there with malaria, but I sat there because if you weren't there, you'd hear it. It's what he expected. So you really got to understand what it meant to be Krishna conscious all the time. Not on a schedule, from the time you wake up in the morning and a couple hours here and take a nap before greeting the deities, and you greet the deities and you do and then you go home and you watch Netflix. No, none of these things. 24 hours a day, you had to be doing service. That's what you got to see when you're with the pure devotee. There's not a moment when you're doing something else. So I learned that there. And that servant, I replaced him. 3 months later, he was gone. And Prabhupada saw that. Devotees who ask what it was like, you learn what it means to be attentive 24 hours a day, to be attentive to your service, to be with him. That's what it required. So while we were there, Kaladri and I, Prabhupada gave us Brahmin initiation. There was no fire jugging. He just, one afternoon we went in, chanted in our ear, gave us the thread, and that was it. He said, "You have fire sacrifice sometimes." So we were initiated together as Brahmins. So that was 72. May 72. Anyway, Kaladri remained in New Vrindavan many, many years. He's there again now, has a home there in New Vrindavan. Just moved back there some months ago. And me, of course, Prabhupada took me away, and I never wanted to go back to New Vrindavan. Anyway, it was 1974, 2 years later, when Krishna Balaram Mandir was supposed to be the grand opening, but there was no opening. The temple wasn't nearly ready. It would be another 6 months before it was ready to be open. But literally, Prabhupada went there, devotees came from the West, from Europe and America, all expecting a temple opening. But it didn't happen. And then Prabhupada became very ill. This was a very serious illness at that time. He stayed in Vrindavan almost 2 months, all of August and September. And for most of that time, he wasn't eating. He was sick, and that's when 24-hour kirtan started for the first time in temples all around the world. So then Prabhupada finally started to recover, and then I got sick. I got malaria for the 3rd time. And if you haven't had it yet, very good. You're very fortunate, because it's the worst possible thing, and you feel like you're going to die, and you get this complete migraine headache. You can't, any light you see, just blinding. And anyway, if you don't, the cure is very easy, but if you don't get it, it'll kill you in just a few days. So I had it. Now Prabhupada, he was recovering. And in his quarters in Vrindavan, you see Prabhupada's sitting room. Then if you take the first right, there's a little room there now. It's of course filled with all this paraphernalia. That was the servants' quarters. That's where I slept. So now I'm lying on the floor, literally dying. And Prabhupada walks through, and I'm lying on the corner, and the devotees are eating lunch. His secretary, his Sanskrit editor, and another sannyasi, they're all happily eating lunch, and Prabhupada's walking through, and he looks at them eating, and he said, anyone taking care of Sruta Kirti? And they all just kind of look, with their hands. He said, call a doctor for him. He said, get him a bed to lie on. He said, and bring him a nimbu pani. It was my nicest drink I ever had. It was a nimbu pani. Prabhupada ordered me to have a nimbu pani. So finally the doctor came, gave me my chloroquine or whatever it's called, and malaria was gone. So then I started to get better. And then Prabhupada called me in. And he said, call Kaladri. So now I went and got Kaladri. And the 2 of us go into Prabhupada's room. And Prabhupada looked at us. He knew, he gave 2 of us Brahmin initiation together. We didn't even think about it. Literally just a couple months ago, his wife said something. And what happened was Prabhupada looked at us. He said, you're just like 2 Brahmin brothers. Because we got initiated together, Brahmin brothers. We were Brahmin brothers. He said, you're 2 Brahmin brothers. He said, you go to the Jamuna today and take bath. That was the only time I left my room. He told me I was allowed to go to the Jamuna to take bath. And we went to the Jamuna, of course, and dipped and came out. And I showed Kaladri how to smear clay all over his body. We laid there in the sun for an hour or so, then went back to the temple. But only on his order. And that's what you learned when you were with Prabhupada. You didn't do anything without his order. And you always were supposed to know what to do in order to serve him. At the same place, he called me in the afternoon. And he looked at me, he said, first-class servant knows what to do without being asked. Second class, you ask him and he does it. You're not first class. If he has to ask you to do something, you're already second class. He said in third class, you ask him and he doesn't do it, or he does it begrudgingly. Use that word. Prabhupada had nice, he said the deities. I just saw this yesterday, or last week, talking to Malati. She was telling us, giving us some guidelines. Prabhupada said in deity worship. He said, the deity should look scintillating. You know that word? Is that how you say it? Scintillating or scintillating? Scintillating, which means sparkly. He liked to see their outfits very sparkly. The deity's outfit, so he said that. So Prabhupada's use of English was so nice. So that one day we went to the Jamuna. Only time, literally, so many months I was there in Vrindavan. I never went. I didn't know anything in Vrindavan except Prabhupada's room. Even we just had our 50th anniversary festival, the grand opening, Krishna Balaram Mandir. Still the 50th anniversary. We're going to try to make Kartik a little 50th anniversary Kartik of the opening of Krishna Balaram Mandir. But as we were getting it, they were asking me different points about the festival, about how it went on and the installation and this. I didn't know anything. All I knew was I was sitting in the room by Prabhupada. Our world, we all had a very specific world that we dealt with. And everywhere we went was a festival. When you were with Prabhupada, every place you went to was like Janmashtami going on that day because Prabhupada was there. He was our festival, was Prabhupada's presence. So when you were with him, that became the daily affair. That was the other thing you want to know what it was like. It was like going to non-stop festivals. And you know what happens after a while? You get like overload. It was like festival overload. Like these programs you're going to have for a week or so. You're not going to have it for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Because after a while you need to get back to your life, right? That was our life. Everywhere you went, festival, because Prabhupada was present. People were coming from all over the world to hear him, just to see him. We lived by that. When I joined, very early on, went to New Vrindavan. I hadn't seen, I joined April, end of April. I was initiated the end of July, literally 3 months later. But all during that time, you would hear Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada did this, Prabhupada went here. One of the places he went to was Russia. When I first joined, he went to Russia in May 71. And we would hear Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada did this, talked to this man. It would travel all over the world. And there wasn't any internet. You didn't make phone calls. Anything, imagine Prabhupada, everything by letter. Everything by letter. He told the devotees in India that time, this was later on, 75, 76, he said, what is this flying around? He said, take the train. He said, we're spending so much money. He wanted to make a deposit once. And if the person went there, it would cost so many rupees to travel there. Or if he mailed it, it would cost so many rupees to mail. So he figured out which one was less, and that's the one he did. So this is how Prabhupada lived. Didn't waste anything. You've all seen his diary, living in New York. Bought salt today, 5 cents. Bought this, 25 cents. Little butter, little this. Everything recorded. So all these things was a big adjustment, especially when you're from America. He knew our style. Money. What did he call us in Vrindavan? He had a term. Damn cheap bubbas. Damn cheap bubbas. We go to India. Somebody, you're going to buy something, they say 100 rupees, and you're thinking, oh, that's damn cheap. It's worth 10 rupees. But they see you Westerner, 100 rupees. But it was damn cheap bubbas. We were damn cheap bubbas, Prabhupada said. Yeah. Wasting. He said, in your country, he said, if you have a pair of pants and they're too long, what do? He said, you cut them. He said, in India, we roll them up. We just roll them up. One day, Shasta, he had a a vase on his desk. And this was a special vase. It was a silver vase that was, somehow it came through Indira Gandhi or something. It wound up in Los Angeles. So Prabhupada really liked this vase. So they would put flowers in it. So then the next day came and the vase wasn't on the desk. Where's the vase? Oh, they're putting flowers in it. He said, why? He said, there were already flowers in it. They didn't spoil, he said, in one day. Why do they have to change it every day? Wasting money. You Westerners, spend money, spend money. So you had to learn. You had to learn to be with him. You had to know what to do. You had to know how not to waste money, waste time. Change everything. Change. That was a big thing, change. Anyway, we're at 5:30 here.
Pretty good.
That you made me leave. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And I've been traveling a lot. We went in May, I got invited 50th anniversary to Perth, Australia. And we stayed in Perth, Australia for a month. And then I got invited to Lithuania Festival the end of July. So I decided just to stay on the road instead of going back to Vrindavan, which turned out to be very, very trying because we stayed in 6 different places in Australia over the course of a month. And then I went to France and we went to New Mayapur and the Paris Temple. Then, I went to England. I stayed at Bhaktivedanta Manor for a week and we went to East London and Bury Place and did a Vanaprastha program and did different programs. Then we went to Leicester and Birmingham and Nottingham. And then we went to Hungary, Budapest and the farm. And then we went to Bratislava for a Saturday feast program. Then went to finally Lithuania. So it was 3 months. And then finally went back to Vrindavan. And just for a week, no one practically saw us. We went back and collapsed. And I thought 3 months. And I thought Prabhupada did it for 10 years. He traveled for 10 years like that, from 70 to 80 years old. And I found 3 months very difficult. And now just went to Boston. We literally went from Vrindavan to Boston, stayed for 10 days, went back to Vrindavan. And that was, we just got back a week ago, so being recuperating from that, then came here. And I was seeing what Prabhupada did on every level, just unimaginable, just not possible. But he did it, and being with him, he never complained. He never said, I'm exhausted, this is exhausting, I'm just gonna stay here. And when he had the option to rest somewhere or go somewhere to preach, he would go somewhere to preach. So this is our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Huh? He was a perfect example of being a devotee of Krishna. All right, Hare Krishna.
Hey.
Yeah, I was staying in my room in here just today. So last night, I'm seeing there's a light on in the room next to me. And so I'm thinking, I guess somebody's in there. It's really quiet. So I go and just look. All the lights on, the bathroom's lights on, every light's on. So I thought, Prabhupada would really be angry. I shut off all the lights. This morning, they went in there and they cleaned the room, getting ready for some guests. Put all the lights on. Not only that, the fan was on. I'm thinking, again. So I was thinking, somebody's in it? No, there can't be anybody in there. It's too quiet. So I went in and I shut them all off again. So I learned one thing from Prabhupada: never waste lectures, and he never waste, wasted anything. Because he saw it as Krishna's energy. You know, we're using it, we think it's ours, and we can do whatever we want with it, but that's an illusion. See, we don't own any of it. We're just being used. It's all coming from Krishna ultimately. So I guess I'll be doing that for a while now. Going into the next room and shutting off lights. Sometimes people criticize me, why are you doing that? Because I said, I'm going to hear Sruta Kirti speak about these things, and I also hear other devotees also explain the same. Our Prabhu was very, very conscientious about not wasting anything. No wasting time, no wasting money, no wasting energy. I guess you used to know when you used to be walking, sometimes you'd see a faucet dripping. That one story was, Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. The details I'm not sure, but I can mention something. And they were doing, it was early in the morning, and Prabhupada with the devotees were walking around Krishna Balaram temple, there's like that path that goes around. And then they would be walking, Prabhupada would be speaking about something, and then they come to one place, and Prabhupada would stop. And he would say, they see, but they don't see. And then the devotees were wondering. Then Prabhupada walked down and didn't say anything. And then they were talking some more, going around, coming back around, come back to the same place. They see, but they don't see. And the devotees thinking, wow, what's Prabhupada seeing? We don't see. So they go around again. And they come to the same place, and he says it with a lot more emphasis this time. And the devotees say, Prabhupada, what is it you see and you don't see? Prabhupada said, it's light out, and that light is on, and nobody's shutting it off.
Third time.
Yeah.
He said that about fan, Krishna Balaram. The same thing. Fan was on, and Prabhupada said,
Or they cut me off. The fan was on, and Prabhupada said, I have to travel 10,000 miles to tell you to turn off a fan.
We have a habit. We go from room to room, we leave the lights on, we leave whatever else is going on. What is it? Damn cheap Baba.
And she loved it.
Thank you for, and what you spoke today was really the essence of Krishna consciousness. And the point you made was that, as devotees, we really have to align ourselves with the instructions of the spiritual master, no matter what it is. And even if it's difficult, even if it seems to be something that impossible to do, and still it has to be done. Teaching that mood of commitment to the instructions of the Spirit. And Prabhupada taught that on all levels, not just on the philosophical level, but on a very basic level. Because we might say, yeah, well, I follow the philosophy, but whatever else he says is not so important.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for inspiring us in Prabhupada Katha, which is so instructive, really instructive. When I hear Sruta Kirti speak, I don't hear Sruta Kirti speak. I hear Prabhupada speaking through him. It's a different, when he starts speaking about Prabhupada, then the whole atmosphere just changes. That means Prabhupada enters into that Katha. Thank you. So I'll speak a little bit because we're doing a seminar. I spoke to this about with some of the devotees here. What topic can we do this time? Then I thought Sruta Kirti will be here, so let's do something that centers around Guru. So I decided to speak on a philosophical, practical level about guru-disciple relationships. And I thought with Sruta Kirti here, it would be really supercharged, enhanced with his realizations and his experiences with Prabhupada. And I've done this seminar a few times, and each time the feedback has always been that this is very helpful, very edifying. I haven't done it in years, but I'm going to try to revive what I had done in the past and probably add something also. Tonight, just to mention, just to give a little springboard to the whole program, I decided to speak on something that Srila Prabhupada also spoke on. There's one lecture that he spoke on, and that's the prayer we sing every day, Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma, Guru Vandana, prayers to the spiritual master. It's interesting because usually those we worship, the tradition is, or the culture is, to worship the spiritual master on his appearance day. But Prabhupada added that Guru Vandana prayers along with the Guru Vastakam prayers every day. That wasn't done before. Why? Because we didn't know anything about Guru. I mean, at least I didn't anyway. What is a Guru and how to serve the spiritual master and what is his position? So I thought this prayer, and Prabhupada spoke about it might be interesting to give a little insight. And this prayer is actually coming from Srila Narottam Das Thakur. And it's in one of his books. Chandrika, what is the whole title for that book? Something Chandrika? Bhakti Chandrika by Narottam Das Thakur. There are some purports that are given by Srila Prabhupada to it, but I also did it as a offering to Srila Prabhupada in the year 2003 for the Guru Puja offering during his appearance day. So I'm going to try to go line by line a little bit to try to give a little explanation of each of the lines and some of the deeper meanings of each of the lines. Although each line that is there has so much meaning and can be seen from different angles of Vishnu. I'll try to give it more in a synopsis form. This is one of the most deepest and devotional songs that we can offer to the spiritual master. Srila Narottam Das Thakur is noted for his deep devotion, but his expertise in connecting devotion to the Siddhanta of Bhakti. His songs are also what we say Shastra. And many of them are conclusions of the essence of Shastra. And particularly this song, Sri Guru Charana Padma. The Sri Guru refers to that Guru who is decorated with all opulences, all good qualities. That's why we say Sri Guru, not just Guru, but Sri means opulent, beautiful, auspicious, imbibed with all of the good qualities as a person who enlightens everyone with not only with philosophy, but by exhibiting the qualities of a great soul. Sri Guru Charana, lotus feet. Prabhupada said the lotus feet of the spiritual master indicates pure devotional service. Lotus feet indicates surrender. Lotus feet indicates complete dedication to the instructions of the spiritual master. Padma means, of course, lotus, charana, padma, lotus feet. So the lotus feet of the spiritual master, Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadhana, is the embodiment of pure devotional service. Prabhupada said many things about lotus feet. One thing he said really stuck in my mind is that he said that if you remember the lotus feet of the spiritual master, you will never be impeded in your execution of devotional service. That means whatever obstacles may come, either external or internal, from our own minds or from the environment, if we remember the lotus feet of the spiritual master, we'll be successful in executing the instructions he gives. So that's powerful when you think about it. How simply by remembering the spiritual master's lotus feet, one can overcome all obstacles. One time, I think maybe Sruta Kirti might have heard this many times. One devotee came to Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, I have so many difficulties, obstacles in my devotional service. Prabhupada said, you just come to me and I will kick out all of those obstacles. And that's a fact. And of course, Prabhupada was a pure devotee way beyond all pure devotees. But what he was saying is ultimately that the shelter, the success, and the progress we make in devotional service is all centered around serving the instructions of the spiritual master, which are indicated by surrender to his lotus feet. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. Kevala means complete, or the nectar of devotional service, the essence of devotion. Bando Muhi Sarvadana Mate. I offer my respectful obeisances to the spiritual master. Prabhupada, in explaining this particular line, he says, not hatchet. Hatchet refers to an axe. He said sometimes devotees would come into the room and they would pay their obeisances, touch the floor, and be back up. He said, not like that. I think you might have experienced some situations where devotees were trying to serve Srila Prabhupada. And so they would come in and just do this hatchet. Oh, not like that. Chikuru Charanava Bando Muhi Sarvadhanamate. What with great devotion I offer my respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Narottama is emphasizing how important it is that this should be done every time we see the spiritual master, offering obeisances. And Krishna mentions that in Bhagavad Gita, how that becomes one of the principles of the execution of pure devotional service, to offer obeisances. And I see sometimes today, might be for different reasons, but people either skip obeisances or do what is called the hatchet version, just going down and coming back up. But that doesn't really indicate obeisances. It's more like a mechanical expression. Obeisances really means from the heart. You have to put your heart into it. I mean, you chant the mantras of the Guru pranams when you go down. And that awakens devotion within you. So it's very important that we follow this principle of etiquette. Bando Muhi Sarvada Yadhara Prasadi Bhai Ebaba Tadiyai. This one, your mercy is not some cheap material boon or something that is lost through the influence of time. It is the desire of our heart. The spiritual master can help you cross over the ocean of material existence. He has the boat. He is the captain of the boat. The boat is devotional service, the favor of winds of the execution, or the rules and regulations in devotional service, and by his mercy, the ocean of material world sinks to a puddle, and one can easily cross beyond it by his mercy. And where does he take you? Bande Krishna Prapti Hoi Yan Hoi Te. He takes you where? To the lotus feet of Krishna. He takes you back to the spiritual world. So this first stanza is very instructive, that the spiritual master is guiding you ultimately to Krishna. And that is his business. This is Narottam Das Thakur's realization on his bhakti tours, Candramauli Swami. Urumukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya. Your words alone can purify our heart and mind. Everything has been given. The understanding is that we need nourishment. And we get nourishment in different ways. Most of us, when we think nourishment, kind of connects with something edible. But then there is spiritual nourishment, and that is the sound vibration that comes from the lotus lips of the spiritual master. So that's my foodstuffs. That's my happiness. That's my success in bhakti. Narottam Das Thakur is saying that everything has been given. And those who become eager to hear the words of the spiritual master, they relish devotional service. Just hearing them. Even, I guess, Sruta Kirti could also confirm this, where sometimes Prabhupada would take his devotees into different venues, and Prabhupada sometimes would speak in Hindi because of the audience. And the devotees we weren't able to, at least the devotees then, didn't know Hindi. So some of them wanted to get up and leave when Prabhupada speak and do something else. Prabhupada said, sit down, where are you going? Wow, this sound vibration is pure. Simply by hearing, even if you don't understand, still you will benefit simply by hearing the sound vibration. Now that's powerful. You want to say something about that?
No, true. He even said that children in the womb, he could hear. Because, you know, in our society through the years, there's been so many controversies, and the children, he said the children should sit and listen. He said even they don't understand. He said because the potency, the spiritual potency is there. So he wanted the children there, wanted the Matajis there. Matajis who were pregnant were there. He said they'll also benefit. The child will benefit even within the womb. You know that. You can sit and read aloud to your child while they're there, even before they're born. So,
Child can't discriminate, but he can
Yes.
hear. Nice, thank you. So that verse, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Vaikya. And then the next line, Arna Koriya Muniyas. That's it. I'm fixed. I don't have to go anywhere. Everything I need to know is coming from the lotus lips of my spiritual master. And my determination is to stay fixed and hearing from my spiritual master. And these words awaken everything I need in my progress of devotional service. Become fixed on those words as my life and soul. Ana Kamino Manias. That's our determination. Nothing else is necessary. Guru, Shri Guru Charanarate, Ese Uttamadati. Your faith will be tested, and these tests, when accepted as your mercy, strengthens our attachment to your lotus feet. What are those tests? The lotus feet of the spiritual master is the ultimate success in our practice of devotion. It's the Uttamadati. It's the gain, it's the ultimate gain in execution of our devotional service. I'm attached. The word rati means attachment. I'm attached to serving the spiritual master. I'm attached to hearing the words. I don't need to go anywhere else. Narottam Das Thakur is saying, whatever, ye prasadi purvi sarva as, whatever else we may desire, It's not a concern. Sometimes we interpret that line as saying, whatever you want, even if it's outside of devotional service, say you need something in your basic life to somehow give some success to your family or to your occupation, don't worry about that. Just stay fixed on the lotus feet of the spiritual master. All desires will be fulfilled ultimately. So that kind of conviction is ultimately the success of our devotional service. Chakshudam Dilo Ye, this is your main business, to wake us up from the sleeping lap of Maya. Janmi, Janmi, sometimes Prabhupada would say Pita say. Pita means father, but the word actually is Prabhu. So sometimes the word Pita is used for Prabhu, because the spiritual master is representing our eternal father. So he is also our father. And Prabhupada would always say, yes, my disciples are more like sons than my daughters. He would see it. And it wasn't just some kind of arrangement. It was an affectionate feeling towards the disciples. They are my children. They have come to me for guidance. I am their father. That is my responsibility, to give them what they need. And we are born in ignorance. We grow up in this materialistic society. We are taught that success means to have a good position in society, to have a nice relationship with someone, build a nice family, and then enjoy life through family life and through positions in society, whatever you can gain from that. So that's the illusion. Nothing about the goal of life. So that's our darkness. The darkness is to accept material life as something that will give us success or happiness in life. But all it does is it blinds us to our real goal in life, which is our relationship with Krishna. We're being devoured by that light, but you have given us the torchlight of knowledge. Light indicates knowledge, darkness indicates ignorance. You're bringing that light of bhakti, and that opens our eyes to the reality of our existence and to the goal of our life. That is, so this Janme Janme Pita say. Divya Gyan Ride Prakasitam. This Prabhupada translates this very interesting. He says, this is your identity. You only have one identity. Who are you? You are eternal servant of Krishna. That's all. This is the Divya Gyan. Divya means transcendental, Gyan means knowledge. This is the Divya Gyan. What is that Divya Gyan? Who your real identity is. We have so many adopted identities due to our association with the external energies. And these identities sometimes are there the whole life, sometimes they come and go throughout our life. And then when we change and we come back again in another life, we have another series of identities with a whole different group of other living entities, which we again re-identify ourselves. But amongst all of those changing identities, there's one identity that never changes. Chivar Surupa Krishna and Nityadas. So that is what the Divya Gyan means in this particular part of the song. We are eternal servants of Krishna. Prema Bhakti, Yohoite, Avidyavinasayati. You are the fountain of pure love. You are the moon that shines like Lord Nityananda, distributing the holy name everywhere and anywhere, destroying the ignorance of the Bali conception of life. You awaken Prema Bhakti. You destroy ignorance simply by your words. So if we stay fixed on hearing from the spiritual master and understanding what he is saying, carrying out those instructions to the best of our ability, then everything becomes easy and clear. That's why it says the success of bhakti really complete faith in the words of the spiritual master. And faith is not something idle, it's active. Just like sometimes people say, you know, I wanted to go here, but I couldn't go. That means you didn't want to go. People say that sometimes. I wanted to go, but I didn't go. That means something else was more important. That means that was what you really wanted and not what you said you wanted. We hear that sometimes. Oh, I wanted to go to the retreat, but I didn't go. That means you didn't want to go. Because something else you wanted to do, for whatever reason. Now that's a little revolutionary. It sounds a little contradictory, but it's not when you look at it from a deeper point of view. When you want something, you try to carry it out and make it happen. So what do we want? We want devotional service to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada can give us that just by his words and by his direction on how we live our life. He destroys ignorance, and he can bless, just like the spiritual master. If he decides to give you some blessing, that blessing is given automatically by Krishna. I don't know, there's one particular devotee, I won't mention his name, Sruta Kirti knows him well. He served Prabhupada very nicely in the early days. And he was with Prabhupada in Japan, and he traveled from Prabhupada in those areas. And Prabhupada also taught him how to cook. His name was Black Body Devotee. And somehow or other, due to the influence of time, actually when Prabhupada left the world, it was too much for him. He couldn't stay in Krishna consciousness. And there may be other reasons also. We don't really know. But he went back to materialistic life and really went far down. I mean, he started to get intoxicated and all kinds of activities that are completely against the principles. And then at one point in his life, he got sick. He got cancer. And then it was a matter of time before he was going to leave the body. So somehow or other, due to his association with Prabhupada and his service, he decided to come back to the Society of Devotees. Well, Prabhupada had been gone by then. And the devotees welcomed him back and they took care of him. But still, it was a matter of time before he would leave. So that moment came. And when that moment came, something amazingly happened. He was sitting in his bed, and then he looked in one direction and he said, "Prabhupada, you've come." And that was all. That's the last thing he said. Prabhupada came to take him back. Because he had pleased Prabhupada so much by his devotion. So sometimes even if we fall away, we're not lost. Of course we shouldn't, and that is unfortunate if we do. But somehow if the spiritual master wants to give you some special blessings beyond all of everything else, then Krishna will give you that. Because he's very inclined to fulfill the words of his pure devotee. I think that happened a few times, Prabhupada. Just that the last part of someone's life, they just became perfect. In other words, they got the special mercy. So devotional service is never lost. Never lost. So, yeah. And then the Vedic Gahiyana Charita. The knowledge you speak is backed by the Vedic scriptures. You're glorified in all Vedic scriptures. And the spiritual master is glorified just as much as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the scriptures, your fame will be spread throughout the three worlds. That's the next stanza. But this one sort of patterns that something, that your glories are spread throughout Vedic knowledge. How important it is to take shelter of a spiritual master. The whole process of bhakti develops up to the point where one is required to make that step and find a spiritual master, and then surrender to that spiritual master, and then make further progress towards the goal of life. It is necessary, it's essential as the purpose of human life, because there are people who, unfortunately, who have been in our society for 10, 15, 20 years. They like the devotees. They sometimes come to the temple. They do services. They chant sometimes. I don't know. They're nice people, but they don't take a spiritual master. And I always wonder why. And sometimes they can never give an answer. I've approached a few who've been around for a while and asked them that question. And they can't give a real clear answer. There's something in the back of their mind, or something maybe due to previous lives that's blocking them from that next, or they just don't have faith in authority. There's those people who don't accept any form of authority, or they accept only the authority that they want to accept. And so it's unfortunate, but that step is necessary. And Prabhupada was always encouraging, come to that point of surrender to the spiritual master, and then that mercy, that added mercy will carry you through the process of bhakti. You can make advancement without taking a spiritual master up to a certain point. And when you reach that point, you can't go any farther. Because that next step is required. And then one must understand that I need mercy. And then that mercy is there, available, with taking shelter of the spiritual master by following the instructions. Then anartha nivritti, all of the anarthas start to disappear by the grace of the spiritual master in one's endeavor in devotional service. Combination of both. And it's unfortunate, I'm sure we all have experience with devotees who've been around for years and years and years, still can't take that next step. I know one very nice girl. She's so nice. She does nice service. And I've known her for 20 years. But when I asked her, I even told her who her spiritual master is, because something came to me one day when I was thinking about her, and then the name of that spiritual master came to me. I said it to her, I said, "This is your spiritual master." She said, "Yes," but that's as far as it went. She never took that next step. So it's unfortunate. We can't understand why, but please don't become too hesitant to make that step, because we have to qualify ourselves. And what does it qualify? Sincerity. If we sincerely execute devotional service, Krishna sends you your spiritual master. And by your sincerity in devotional service, you'll be able to understand and recognize that person. Shri Karuna Sindhu, your mercy is vast, it's like a deep ocean. You are the friend of all living entities. Why? Because you represent the best friend of all living entities. So Krishna is called Suhit. Suhit is another word for friend, that friend that knows your best interest. You have friends in this world. You may share different things with your friends. You may do different things together. You feel happy. And that friend may not always know your best interests. But Krishna is that friend who loves you and at the same time can also give you whatever you need to find happiness in your life. And the spiritual master representing Krishna is also, you might say, your best friend. He's the friend of all living entities. We are poor and we are very unfortunate. Adamad, another bandhu. Please make us fortunate. Narottam Das Aha, Prabhu Kora, well, no, I actually skipped one line. Prabhu Lokera Jivan. Everyone is your disciple, an object of your mercy. Some know it and some don't. And Prabhupada also said that. Everyone is my disciple, some know it and some don't. Because Prabhupada knew his position. He wasn't proud at all, but he knew Krishna had sent him to do this work, and he became what is called the Jagat Guru, the person who is qualified to make disciples all over the world. And so some people know it, some people don't know it, some people know it, but they don't really know it. That means they don't act on it. Anyway, Krishna Bhakti, let's see here, okay. Prabhupada, and then Lokanath Lokeda Jivan, Narottam Das Thakur is glorifying his spiritual master, Lokanath Das Goswami. Sometimes if we sing that song, we say Prabhupada Lokeda Jivan. He is our life. We get life from Srila Prabhupada. Haha Prabhu Korodoya Dehamori Padajaya. This is really powerful. You are merciful. You are so merciful. And I know you're merciful, but still I'm begging for mercy. Not because you're merciful, I don't have to do anything. You have to show you want that mercy. You cry for that mercy. You pray for that mercy. You act in such a way that you can attract that mercy. So that mercy is available, but we should also want it at the same time. I mean, Prabhupada used to say, when people would ask him, give me your mercy, Prabhupada said, I'm giving it, just take it. Just take it. But still, we won't be able to take it unless we really want it. And what is that mercy? Engaging in devotional service. To be engaged in devotional service is the mercy of the spiritual master. To come to the process of devotional service is not so easy, but those who have that opportunity are fortunate. Very few people in the world are actually fortunate. Srila Prabhupada went everywhere in the world, but how many people actually understood what he was saying and was able to accept it as something that they could benefit from? Very few. Very few. Because to come to devotional service requires a lot of sincerity. In other words, you really want to make progress in life. You don't know what that progress is. Then that progress comes in the form of Krishna's representative. When you're able to recognize that, then you'll be able to accept it. But it's rare. Nectar Devotion also says the same thing. To come to devotional service is extremely rare. How many living entities out of billions and billions, uncountable living entities in this material world, how many actually come to devotional service? Very few. But those who do are extremely fortunate. And those who come under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada, and that means anyone who comes to the ISKCON Society is actually a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Shiksha and Diksha are non-different, and everyone has a relationship with Srila Prabhupada by following his instructions and taking initiation from those who represent Srila Prabhupada, because those persons are giving Srila Prabhupada also. Yeah, and so you're merciful, but I'm begging. Dehamurapada, Abhyas, Abhyasa Gusik Tripuvan. This is very important that your glories are spread throughout the world. And we're seeing that now. Slowly, but gradually and progressively, more and more people are coming in contact with this movement and with Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada's glories are spreading everywhere. More and more, even within the secular society, people are seeing how this movement is spreading fast. And that's only due to Srila Prabhupada is still personally present. Not just present in thought and mind, he's still directing this movement. He's in the hearts of his devotees, guiding his devotees, and even doing things, making things happen, because his will was, Prabhupada's desire to spread Krishna consciousness was so strong that even if, as Sruta Kirti was explaining, and he has explained it so many times, Prabhupada was like, to stay with Prabhupada, you had to be ready to do anything and anything. And Prabhupada was always having this vision how to spread Krishna consciousness, more ideas, more ways, using devotees, using facilities. He was non-stop. And to travel so many times around the world, 14 times around the world, so many countries. You know, I've been traveling since 1980s. I've been traveling for more than 40 years, somehow or other. But when I think, boy, this is difficult. I'm always thinking, let me take a break and stop for some time and just kind of like become re-energized, get a little bit of, but Prabhupada never thought about that. He used every moment to spread Krishna consciousness. And we did whatever it takes. Even he wanted to spend as much time as he could to give us Srimad Bhagavatam, but then he saw there were so many difficulties in managing our society. Prabhupada took some time out of that and started to do managing, because he knew that was needed due to time, place, and circumstance. And he was teaching at the same time showing while he was teaching. So, Prabhupada's glories, it's not, no one can understand. And as Sruta Kirti so rightly said, we're learning more and more as time goes on. I can say that from my own experience. Each year, as I stay in devotional service, I just marvel at how great Srila Prabhupada is. Although I don't know so much about him, what I do know is that it's amazing. It's amazing. If you listen to his lectures, they just penetrate, and they inspire your intelligence, and they just penetrate your heart. Just so direct, so clear, so free from any pretense or any patronizing. He's never patronizing or never pretentious. He's telling you like it is. Sometimes people used to ask me, what did you like most about Srila Prabhupada? And I don't have to think more. What I liked about his surety. He said, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you're his eternal servant. There's no question about it. In other words, what he said wasn't, well, maybe, perhaps, think about it, no, this is the way it is. And not only did he know it, he lived it. So when someone is living according to what they're speaking, it has power, has potency. It affects those who hear, at least those who hear with submission. Okay, this is a beautiful song. Prabhu Kola. I like that line, Prabhu Kola Daya That you reach a kind of a zenith when you're singing that one line. You just cry out, Prabhupada, I want your mercy. That doesn't mean we are qualified to receive it, but still if we want it, that's the big part of the qualification, is to want it. Because we need it. Without the mercy, there's no hope. Okay. Thank you. The Prabhupada ki jai.
Candramauli Maharaj ki jai.
Sruta Kirti Prabhu ki jai. Any devotees would like to ask some questions or make a comment, anything that's been said? Yes, we have, yes, Krishna Kaviraj.
Yes.
Please stand up. Thank you.
So you gave so many instructions. There's one instruction, well, I don't know if it was an instruction, but teaching, let's call it. You both gave the same teaching, and it was around, I think, Kirti.
You both gave us lots and lots of teachings today, which is really, really useful. But there's one that I was a little confused about. It was around Sruta Kirti. Prabhu was talking about. He was talking about the scenario where you must always be there in that room for Srila Prabhupada. His business is not to go anywhere else but to be there for Srila Prabhupada. And in various other examples, you also mentioned that one should be there to get the association of the spiritual master. One should be there to hear from the spiritual master with eagerness, enthusiasm, attention. And there's the spoken instruction that you give, and then there's the unspoken instruction. And sometimes you want your disciples to be somewhere. Say, let's, for example, we're all in different countries, but say you're visiting a nearby town to any of us. So, and you're giving a class, for example, that anybody could come to. So I feel there's an expectation that you would want that your disciples to come there and hear from you, which is fine. But in some cases, the disciples may say, I've got other responsibilities. They may be material responsibilities, and then we could see, material, no. Hearing from the spiritual master, yes. But they may also be other spiritual devotional service, not necessarily directly given by the spiritual master, but maybe devotional service that's, for example, given by temple authorities or another senior devotee that's expecting things. And then it's, I find a struggle to see, when should you be rushing to hear from the spiritual master? When you should be saying, no, but actually I should be doing this devotional service. I've committed to this and it's given to me by an authority.
It's yours. It's a long question.
Yeah, ultimately, should you follow the instructions of the spiritual master, or should you follow the instructions of the spiritual master? Which one? Then you have to know which one is the one that applies to you.
I always say, your service is always right in front of you. You don't have to think how to find something to do. The service is always right there in front of you. You know, when I speak about my having to be in the room, that was my service. It wasn't your service. It was my service to be there. Other people have different services. You have to know what it is you're supposed to be doing. You know, that was the point Prabhupada made. A good devotee knows what to do. You know, you have to come to the point. We're not always, like Prabhupada said, kirtan. You know, someone was playing the cartels, but he wasn't in time with Prabhupada leading the kirtan. And he said, first learn to follow, then you can lead. But we want to come to the point where we know how to lead. Not that we're always just a student. You know, you also have to come to the point where you can be teaching others as well. So everything always progressing. You're always a student. You know, we're always learning, but at the same time, you want to be able to teach others. That's what preaching means, right? Sometimes it means to just listen to people. Doesn't mean just go on talking. So, you know, we have to become intelligent, you know, devotee. You know, being a fool before your spiritual master doesn't mean to be foolish. You know, there's a difference. We always consider ourselves a fool. All I know what to do is what you've told me to do. You know, that's what I do. That's what Maharaj says. If I speak, is all you're going to hear is what Prabhupada showed me, what Prabhupada told me, what Prabhupada I heard him speak. I'm not going to say anything else. You're not going to hear my opinion. Somebody said that to me once. My opinion. I said, I don't care about your opinion. What is Prabhupada's opinion? That's my opinion. Not, well, my opinion is that this. No, who cares about your opinion? So our whole life is to understand Prabhupada's opinions. He's our Acharya. He's everything. So then when you know that, whatever you do is okay. Because it's always going to be in service to your spiritual master.
And when you're trained like that, when the spiritual master's not around, you know what to do. Unless you have that training in the beginning, when you're not outside of the instructions, or at least not directly in contact, you'll be able to know what to do.
And that's why you have to take a spiritual master. That's the process. One has to humble themselves to learn what to do. Then everything's okay.
Mm-hmm. It's like you tell Sruta Kirti, you know, if you go to Mangala, you tell you is Maya for you. But where is that in the Shastras? But this is the specific instructions supersede everything.
Yeah. Like sometimes people would say to Prabhupada, go to Mangalarti. Like those things never even came into my mind. People would, how many rounds did Prabhupada chant? Did he go to Mangalarti? What time did he bathe? Whatever he did was perfect. See, that's when you have to come to that conclusion. And yet, you know, you have to have the spiritual master who is completely surrendered to Krishna. One time somebody asked me, what about a guru that lies? I said, there's no such thing, he's not a guru. How can a guru lie? That the whole position of guru is to give absolute truth. So I said, we say oxymoron, a lying guru. No such thing. He's not guru, he's nonsense.
He's a liar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think maybe you can correct me on this. When Prabhupada met Tamal Krishna Goswami was traveling a lot. And now he came into Prabhupada's association. I think it was in Vrindavan or somewhere in India. And Prabhupada told him, now I want you to stay here. And then Tamal Krishna Goswami said, yes, that's very nice, but we hear that a rolling stone gathers no moss. Prabhupada said, stay here and gather some moss. So, whatever your intelligence, you think you know everything, it makes you look like a fool in the front of the spiritual master.
That was the other person. When Prabhupada wanted him to stay in India, BGBC, and he wanted to go to the USA. This was to develop the Radha Damodar party. He said, there's no preaching in India. He said, all we do is make life members. You try to be, yes, I know Krishna, I know Brahma, I know this, I know that. When devotees went to India, they were stifled. They couldn't preach to Indians. So Prabhupada kept saying, I need you here. He was the GBC. He was the most valuable. He said, I want to go to, this went back and forth. I was, again, in the room for this conversation, and it got louder and louder and louder. Yeah, I was shivering in the corner. It was just something I had never witnessed. It was actually arguing. And Prabhupada was arguing back, and it got louder and louder. I'm going to go, no, stay, I'm going to go, stay. And finally Prabhupada said, chant your 16 rounds, follow the principles, do any damn thing you want. Because it's all voluntary. You voluntarily accept the orders, carry them out. They're orders and you carry them out. but you're not forced. Love cannot be forced.
Right.
Our whole process is one of developing love.
It's interesting, I was just listening to Prabhupada today, he was speaking exactly like that. He said devotional service is not forced. He said you can't, even if you force a child, after some time the child will not accept.
He might try to force something. If you're fortunate, sometimes he'll try to force. That's what he did in that situation, but you accept it. See, voluntarily you accept the force of the spiritual master. But that's voluntarily. So we're always have to make that choice. And most of us know what the right choices are. Sometimes we'll go against that, for sense gratification. That's the constant battle. It's always there at this stage.
Question.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
I saw you were typing the whole time.
Yes,
You were typing what he was saying?
yes.
Okay. You weren't doing something
There's a lot of
different.
typing going on, I saw, and writing. I know what they're writing.
I'm typing all the principles that Prabhu shared that I can use in my service. There's that pastime when Srila Prabhupada was just entering the room and devotees, just before he entered, they turn on the lights, turn on the fan, and Prabhupada just looked at them and said, "What a waste of energy," or something like that. And I was really puzzled how to understand this pastime, because should they then leave it, dark until he comes in and then turn out? How to understand that? It's bewildering.
Well, whatever he says, accept it. And if he says something different at another time, you can accept that also. It's like, I think the Sruta Kirti Prabhu can, maybe I'm going to try to talk about a pastime he was in. One Prabhupada's godbrother. It was in Mayapur. He would come to talk to Prabhupada all the time. And he was always complaining about somebody, criticize this person, that. And at one time, Prabhupada said, "I don't want to see him. When he comes to see me," Sruta Kirti was told, tell him, Prabhupada, what did he tell him? I'm not available, I'm sleeping or something. Something like that.
I was thinking that as part is for tomorrow. But because I was thinking about that, yes. It was Prabhupada's godbrother who come and visit him every day in Mayapur. His younger godbrother, sannyasi. And Prabhupada, after he left, Prabhupada called me in the room and said, when he comes, I don't want to see him. He said, all he does is gossip. Prabhupada used that word. He didn't say prajalpa, he said gossip. All he does is gossip. He says, in my mat, temple, the brahmacharis are doing like this, and this is going on like this, and your godbrothers are saying this about you, and just talking nonsense. Prabhupada said, I don't want to see him. He said if he came here and talked philosophy or talked about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, he said, that would be fine. He said, but he just gossips. Prabhupada said, this gossip destroys your Krishna consciousness. Didn't say it stops it. Didn't say it slows it down. He said it destroys it. Gossip. Worst thing, gossip. So I said, yes, Prabhupada. He's talking to a 21-year-old kid, saying, don't let his godbrother come in. So the very next day, of course, the afternoon, here he is walking up the stairs. I'm at the top of the stairs with the security, personal servant security. I'm here to see Swamiji. I said, well, fortunately, Prabhupada was resting after lunch, was taking a nap. And I said, so he's not up. He said, whenever I want, I can see him. He said, I'm here to see him. So he's, So I said, well, yes. I said, but he's resting right now. So we're right outside Prabhupada's bedroom. And Prabhupada opens the door. You could hear he opens the door and no cordon, he's got his dhoti, it's getting all wrinkled up and all, he's fixing his dhoti. And he sees his godbrother. He said, "Oh, so Maharaj, go in, sit down, I'll be right there." So he tells him to go into the sitting room and sit down. And Prabhupada walks to the end of the building, in Mayapur, the Lotus building, goes bathroom, comes back, and him and I are sitting in the room, his godbrother and I are sitting, and I could feel his anger with me, trying to prevent him from seeing Prabhupada. So Prabhupada comes in. He didn't come in and give him a hug or anything, like you would do with Krishnadas Babaji or others, It was a little more formal. He went and sat behind his desk, and his godbrother's just sitting on the floor, like we all did, And as soon as Prabhupada sat down, he said, "Your servant," he said, "told me, wouldn't let me in to see you." And Prabhupada looked at me. He said, "I told you, whenever he comes, let him in." And then he said, "Okay, now you can go." So then he sent me out of the room. So I was very, very happy that Prabhupada confided that in me, that was very sweet. And Prabhupada, being compassionate like he was, he had him come in and he would speak with him, everything. But he let me know his feelings. He didn't like this. And he did that even, same thing, it happened in Mayapur almost every time we went there. He would say, "Tell them to be quiet." He was talking about his disciples in the rooms around him. He said, all they do is gossip. He didn't like to hear anyone talking about someone else. Didn't like it. All he wanted to hear was how to spread Krishna consciousness, where you store Krishna books, whatever, but not just talking about people and their faults. Didn't like it. Yeah. I'm trying to think, there was one other thing I wanted to add to that, but anyway, those things you also, and he did that with every one of some of his servants, they liked the gossip. Me, I stayed to myself pretty much, but others, they were a little more talkative. And he would always tell them, no, this is not good. And he would always say the same, it destroys your Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada, one time, was at Bhaktivedanta Manor, the GBC there. When Prabhupada arrived, there was the temple president, and there was a sannyasi, where Bhaktivedanta was a sannyasi. So anyway, he came, and they both came into Prabhupada's room. And the temple president, he was young, we're all young. He came in, and he'd just been temple president for some time, and he started saying, GBC, he doesn't chant his rounds. Everyone knows it. He doesn't chant his rounds. And Prabhupada looked at the sannyasi, and he said, tell him to leave. He didn't even tell the devotee himself. He wouldn't even look at him. He looked at the sannyasi and said, you tell him to leave. He didn't even want to hear the criticism of one of the devotees. He said, before he said that, he said, he's your senior. Imagine, we're talking 2 years, 3 years earlier, this person is joined, and I saw them all like that. When I joined Prabhupada's party, Shama Sundar, he was 10 years older than me. He joined 1967. I was just a kid, joined 1971. We saw them. We saw these people. They were senior devotees. And Prabhupada said, he's your senior. And he said, tell him to leave. He didn't even say directly to him, you should go. So then he left. And then the sannyasi said, Prabhupada, it's true. Everyone knows that he doesn't chant his rounds. And Prabhupada looked at him, he said, Arjuna didn't chant his rounds. He said he was fighting a war. He didn't have time to chant his rounds. He said, anyway, that's how you should see it. Not that you become critical. He said, you should see that somehow or other he has something. And then, of course, he called in later on, he called in the person and said, in encouraged him. He didn't throw him out. He encouraged him. You have to set an example. You're one of the senior, like that. The whole business of the spiritual master is for you to become attached to him. And the only way you can do that, again, is through love. You have to. He teaches you how to develop your love of Krishna by developing your love for the Guru.
Nice. He's also teaching us that we should stop criticizing each other. Because it just breaks the Sangha. It creates a kind of like polarization in the society. Even if there is some reason, still, it's not my business.
It's terrible now what goes on in our... People are so busy watching the world crumble around us, we forget our own business. Prabhupada wrote that one very famous, he said, we're only here for a short time. He said, all these things are going to go on. He said, you're only here, you have to concentrate on becoming Krishna conscious. Not concerned about, Trump or this person and that person. It has nothing to do with us. And I see even the devotees, they're fighting amongst themselves now over things that are beyond our control. It's all under Krishna's control.
It's based on bodily identification too. Some people are taking sides in the war.
Yeah.
Based on it because my country is fighting your country, therefore they fight amongst each other now. That's coming to my attention a couple of times. I don't know. I just dismiss it. What can you do? Because some of these people are real senior devotees too, in position. It's not good. It's not healthy.
We should probably conclude at 6:40.
6:40. So we're overtime. What's our next program? We have Kirtan. Okay. So I think we're...
Finish here.
Yeah, we can finish it. We have the whole week to
Yes.
turn the nectar.
Yes.
Very instructive. What Prabhupada gave us is the epitome of instructions. The application, that we have to learn. Also from him, but we also have to learn it from the intelligence that we gain in the execution of our devotional service. Because if you're not increasing in your ability to do devotional service, that means you're not really following properly. So if we're the same way we were 1 year ago, that means, what are we doing? We should be making more and more advancement by being more aware of how to execute our devotional service. Not that we have to be told every minute. Prabhupada said, I want to make our devotees independently intelligent, right? But in the beginning, he had to spoon feed us in order for us to grow.
He often said to his leaders, do as I'm doing. That was one of the things. I'm doing, just see what I'm doing. Do as I'm doing. He said, don't do anything different. Just as I'm doing, you do like that.
Okay.